Not. The Amazon link to the Hawk book was not working today, of all days. It may already be out of print. It's like 60% off on Amazon right now. Hey Jerry, hey Maureen. Hey. Set up outside. I have got a Miles sitting here with me tonight. Hey Sheena. Hey Marion. Hey everybody. There's my Miles. Yeah. Alright, Marita, that sounds good. I got this Cedar Ridge bourbon that is made from Iowa corn. Hey, Bridget. Very strong stuff, so I'm not having too much. Yep, tonight was a tribute to Todd. Hey, Carol. YouTube should be up now. Showing your beans? Request to show those beans. That's your toes. You show those? Hey everybody, hey Laura. Hey everybody. Welcome along. Miles is really hammering up tonight, isn't he? Right after the Ember knocked down a chair. Thank you, Karen. Do I have that one in the deck for this? I'm gonna just check real quick. We'll also give you guys. Here's a bit of a better view of Miles. I see. No, you know what? Oh yeah, there you are. The deck. Showing you Snaggletooth there, Miles. This guy's turning 6 this month. I don't know exactly what day. And Ember will be 1. Ember, you believe that you're 1? You're not 0. You've never been a 0 to me. Nothing about her is 0. Buddy. With all my heart. Okay, that sounds good anyway. Well, Miles has both of his fangs, just one of them is kind of a snaggletooth. You got both your fangs, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Hey, Rhonda. Okay, well, it's never too long. Never too soon to come back over. It's Iowa corn Cedar Ridge. We're going researching some people around the pond at Graceland today. I thought about doing a tour next weekend, but it looks like it's going to be cold and snowy, so wake up for it. evening, Christine. Hey, Lori. I don't need to swell Miles' head any further. As getting him on a bag of cat food would surely do. $87? Oh, keep it down there in Florida, yeah. Alex, sorry to hear that. Hey, grab a bell. Hey, they'll be over on YouTube. Hey, all around. Yep, this one seems to line up with the ones Todd liked the best. You might be able to hear Miles purring out there. Right now.
They all loved it. They all loved those passages when they played by Benny Goodman.
I'm going to let Benny Goodman do one more tune, then we'll get started. And possibly let Miles calm down. He's showing the beans now. Here. Pop ahead here a little bit. Get a better view of these beans. I see Ember back behind me there, too. Hey, Joyce. Hey, Vicky. Yeah. Of course, this taught Miles that when the computer is up, that means it's time to get attention. So anytime I'm trying to work on this thing in here, he's apt to come try for attention. That includes walking all over it, making a mess of things. Party on, Debbie. Yeah, I haven't even messing with me while I look up Fowler McCormick today. Yeah. The kind of rich kid who, when he wanted to learn to play baseball, his parents hired Mordecai Three-Finger Brown to come teach him to pitch. Of course, his grandparents were John Rockefeller and Cyrus McCormick. Sorry to hear that, Elaine. Yeah, what's this I hear about RFK coming after iced coffee now? From my icy dead hands, Robert. Bob, it looks like it's going to be snowing on the 15th of March as of right now, so I'm kind of hesitant to post something. I thought about it. Miles, what did you hear? Did you hear a door? You notice the elevator's working again, so you don't have to hear that door as much? Yeah. They fixed the elevator. Elevator go up. Here's a deep dive. Yeah, I saw some baseball earlier. All right, Miles, you are getting down. Benny is wrapping up. All right, that is Benny Goodman wrapping it up, everybody. The Benny Goodman coming to you live from the Congress Hotel in downtown Chicago just a shade over 90 years ago. Miles. All right, welcome along, everybody. I'm Adam from Mysterious Chicago Tours. Been a tour guide and historian here in Chicago for over 20 years now. Author of such books as Johann Hawk, Chicago's Serial Husband, The Marriages and Murders of Johann Hawk, which was just named runner-up as Best New Book by a Chicagoan in the Chicago Reader. So that's pretty good, considering I think the book might already be out of print. It's 60% off at Amazon. That's probably not a particularly good sign, but that might mean I'll get the rights back and put it back out in a new edition and, actually get some of the royalties. All right, so welcome along, everybody. I'm Adam for Mysterious Chicago Tours, author also of such books as H.H. Holmes' The True History, Mysterious Chicago, The Book, Graceland Cemetery, Chicago's Stories, Symbols, and Secrets, and Graveyard of Trinity Church and St. Paul's, which also may already be out of print. Both of my books from last year. Super Miles over here has been flying and flying through. Why don't you come sit over here, Miles? See, Miles might be happier just sitting over there for a while. You can probably just watch in the background as he approaches again. No, here he comes. All right. So, welcome along, everybody. I'm Adam from Mysterious Chicago. As I said, tonight we are doing this tour as a tribute to Todd Pearsall, one of our great Mysterians who passed away in the past couple of weeks. We just found out about that. Somebody announced it during one of the morning mini-tours, and here I missed the comments for a while, so I'm out being my usual snarky self. Gets me in trouble every now and then, but we are all out here as a tribute to Todd tonight on Chicago's Spookiest Graves. I am drinking some Cedar Ridge bourbon. They're not paying me to say this, but I'm just tasting it for the first time. Made of Iowa corn, so all right, that's good by me. Very corn-forward bourbon, too. All right, Miles, easy to get down, all right? It'd be a lot easier if he just gets down. So, what we're going to be talking about today is just some spooky graves around Chicago. Now, Chicago is not really one of the better cities to go to if you're looking for spooky graves, because the really spooky ones go back to before people were really being buried much in Chicago. At least people who were having gravestones like this one with the bird poop tear. This is out in New York. Most of the really older ones, you'll see a lot more of in New England. But here's a particular favorite at Trinity Church. Adam Allen, the comedian. Look at that spooky face, for a comedian, no less. That said that he possessed many good qualities, but as he was a man, he had the frailties common to man's nature. It's a heck of a thing to put on somebody's grave. Many good qualities, but as he was a man. Maybe they just meant his mortality, but I'm betting they meant something quite a bit different than that. Now, also, I lived down in Georgia for a long time. Here's me back in college when I heard that there was I used to be terrified of cemeteries. I wouldn't go into them. I would go to great lengths to avoid driving past them. But then somebody told me there was a water slide at the nearest cemetery, and no phobia is worth missing that. So I went and checked out the water slide. I wish I had a better camera back then. And a better ability to grow a beard. For a while I lived in Milledgeville, Georgia, that had Memory Hill Cemetery, a very creepy old place, full of all kinds of particular ghost stories, like all cemeteries do. This has been restored lately, but there was a fence around the grave that had skulls all over it. It used to be much more of a thing in cemeteries that cemeteries were supposed to scare you. They were supposed to remind you of your own impending demise. They were supposed to scare you into getting a little bit more religious. But then they would throw in these statues of the Virgin Mary that look very much to me like George Washington in drag. Look at this. Tell me this is not George Washington in drag. Or the Fish Mausoleum at the same place. Now, there was an old legend about this one. It's not the spookiest looking grave. In fact, when I was there, it had like plywood on the door. But the story was that during one of the cholera epidemics, Mr. Fish lost his entire family, then walled himself up inside of this place with a rocking chair and blew out his own brains. The story went that if you went and knocked on the door and said, "Are you in there, Mr. Fish?" you would hear the gunshot. I never tried it myself. Subsequent research has indicated that, no, that story couldn't have possibly happened. The death of him didn't align with a particular cholera epidemic, but that doesn't necessarily mean they didn't die of cholera. You could die of cholera even when it wasn't an epidemic, for sure. But they did open the place a while ago when there was a lot of questions like, are they going to find the rocking chair? Other people said no, some fraternity stole the rocking chair years and years ago. But on the inside, what they did find was no rocking chair, but a Fisk metallic burial case. These really ornate metal caskets with a viewing window over the face that were all the rage in the mid-19th century. They were supposed to preserve your body forever. In this case, it did not work. The body was found to be in an advanced state of decay and covered in charcoal, too. We think that they were throwing in charcoal to keep the smell down. Now, this is one out in Sleepy Hollow Cemetery in New York. One day I just took the train out to Sleepy Hollow to go check that out. And this one, though the mother is dead and the babe left behind, may it truly be said that father proved kind. No shade there, huh? This one I found out in Ohio. The rising morning can't assure that we shall that we shall end the day. For death stands ready at the door to take the life away. It's a variation on one you see all over the place. This one is also that same one outside of Cleveland. My glasses run, my grave you see. Prepare in time to follow me. Now, people have been making fun of this particular epitaph for years. Even in the 18th century, there was an account of finding one version of that in England on which somebody had written in chalk, to follow you I'll not content until I know which way you went. Well, let's move on into Chicago. Now, in Chicago, we don't really see epitaphs like that or skull and crossbone motifs nearly as much. Even by 1830, when Chicago was first really growing as a city in the 1830s, those were kind of regarded as horribly old-fashioned and even embarrassing. But here's some of these were even going to be covering unmarked graves around here. Right around here is the grave of a guy by the name of Judge Thalstrom, Judge Albert Thalstrom, who, in addition to being a crooked justice of the peace, was also operating a place, and I think we got video of where this was, right? Yeah. Right here on Clybourne, just above Fullerton. Right about where this would have been. I don't think it's the same building. Now, this isn't old enough. But in the 1880s, he was operating a place here that was a combination pool hall, tobacco shop, and a cult bookstore. How this place ever went out of business, I have no idea. But in this place, he was hosting lectures on vampires. A guy named Samuel Patton would come and tell all about how he himself had been chased around by a vampire since the Civil War. You can see the quote here. Justice Thalstrom says, "I see nothing improbable about vampires. The great thing is to be ready if they come. I have read of one who would only suck blood from the soles of the feet." And this, you can find, if you poke around, you can find all of the stories that he was telling in these things. I think we've covered it on the Patreon, linked down right there below. But also, he has ended up being buried right here. He died of tuberculosis. So did Samuel Patton. After telling stories about how you could dig up dead bodies and set fire to the heart and lungs to cure vampirism, both of these guys died of tuberculosis. And he is buried here unmarked, and just to the left of him is the unmarked grave of George Hansen, who not only took the first night photograph that I think is probably known anywhere. It's kind of been fallen through the cracks of history, but I'm going to be working this into the new book. This guy took a picture of the theater fires in Chicago in 1850. That's about 15 years before anybody knows of another night photograph taken in a city. But he was also the coroner. For years, he was the guy that you would go around with to every dead body that was found in Chicago. He would convene a jury and determine what the cause of death was. Usually, he would have to consult with physicians because this was not a job that usually went to doctors in Chicago. Generally known to have done the job very well and not being subject to corruption. Abraham Lincoln made him consul to Elsinore later on. But he was involved in cases like the Henry Jumperts barrel mystery, where Henry Jumperts found his girlfriend dead, chopped the body up into little pieces, and put them into a barrel that he mailed to New York. By some accounts, they could still see the face when they cracked that barrel open in New York. He was the one who had to hold the inquest over the body after it got back to Chicago, by which time it was probably in really genuinely terrible condition. Well, let's see some that are just interesting to see. We can go out to Mount Carmel Cemetery, where, of course, the most famous resident is Al Capone. But there are a couple of particularly interesting graves out here as well, besides all of the gangsters, and most of the big gangsters are out here at Mount Carmel. There's this very nice one here that was presumably based on a photograph that doesn't survive. Hey, Kathleen, out there in the euphonium section. Here we have This is the DeSalvo family. I couldn't find out too much about them. They were living very poor in the 1910s and suddenly rich in the 1920s, which suggests that they found a way to make money in the 1920s, which lots of people did, after all. This is an up close of it. It's really a remarkable, detailed one, and it's really amazing that it's held up in as good a shape as it has as well. Partly because these necks are very thin points of are very thin points in a statue. It's kind of amazing that nobody has knocked these down, or even that they haven't just worn and fall off by now. There are a couple of pictures of the original. You can just about match them to who they would have looked like. But what's interesting about this one is that it rotates. It is built to move. There's Hector, my old podcast co-host and bus driver.
Takes a lot more effort just to move it than with just walking around it would.
Yeah, you could just walk around the thing and get the same effect. So why they have it being rotating,
I probably have
really
time.
knows. It's been brought to you by Guinness. But checking out the statue there, one thing to point out, and I did find this article, these pictures every now and then, photographs. Death waits for no man. Get the children's portrait now. Secure the shadow ere the substance fades. This Van Horn studio is really going in for the hard sell here. Now, Coroner Hansen, who I just showed, who is also a photographer, would advertise in his advertisements that portraits of the dead were something that he could handle. This was fairly common. People hadn't preserved the shadow ere the substance fades. Somebody would die and there had never been a photograph of them. So they would rush to the photographer's studio. Photographers tended to have things to help hold the head up. It's kind of hard to tell if you're looking at a portrait of a dead person, except in the case like this. Coroners can always tell you whether they're alive or dead. You can tell usually by the eyes. But this is Julia Baccola, known as the Italian Bride. And down at the bottom of the statue here, there's a couple of photographs. One is of her in the wedding dress that was used as the basis for this photo. And then the other, of the basis of the statue. And the other is one in her coffin. And then the epitaph around says that this photograph was taken 6 years after her death. Now, after Julia's death, she died in childbirth about 9 months after her wedding. Sometimes the story goes that she died a virgin on her wedding night. She died about 9 months after what we can assume was a pretty eventful wedding night. But she died in childbirth. Her mother had refused to let her see a doctor for reasons that are kind of unclear. She had just moved over from the old country a couple of years before, was remembered by the family as a holy terror. But Philomena, her mother, started having nightmares that her daughter was demanding to be dug back up. Now, her brothers had made an awful lot of money in Los Angeles as tailors. They were making, clothes for movie stars. So they had enough money that they could arrange to have the body exhumed, so Philomena made enough of a pest of herself, I guess. The body was exhumed and found to be in good condition. Now, the body was embalmed. It was actually, we know even what funeral home. It was Rago Brothers Funeral Home on Western Avenue, which was very close to Julia's house, which was pretty close to Erie and Western, where she was living with Matthew. Matthew, her husband, had another son afterwards with another wife who was still around last time I checked. He's in a nursing home in Florida. Who knows if he even knows the story of his father having a previous wife. His father was a fairly well-known his son was a fairly well-known high school basketball coach. But this is sometimes said that they were trying to get her sainthood based on this photograph because her body was incorruptible. Really, it was just embalmed. I wouldn't even say she's in particularly good shape if you look at the arm over there. Well, her ghost is, of course, said to haunt this area. There's a high school right across the street. Try not to get a ghost story going. One year in the 1970s, the whole prom emptied out because somebody said the ghost was walking across the street. But her Philomena then strong-armed Giuseppe and Enrique, her brothers, into paying $10,000 or something for this monument. It was kind of a sore point among the family. You didn't bring it up. They were rather bitter about having to pay all of that money for it. But another sad one, and this was I tend to get much more reactions to animal deaths, and this isn't really an animal death situation. People just tend to think it is. In 1918, there was a horrible train wreck out east of Hammond. Sickening scenes. Initially, they said 46 were dead, then it was 48. And then 69 bodies were taken from the wreck, 1918. This would have been the Hallenbeck-Wallace Circus. And here's a picture of the train wreck. Look at how bad this was. Look at the crowd gathering around. I'm surprised we don't have like a picture of the crowd gathering around and smiling and waving, as you so often do in situations like this. But among the circus performers who were on this wreck were the Flying Wards, pictured here, featuring Jenny Ward Todd, and the great Deersix brothers, who were the Strongmen Act. You can see they were big into this might be part of why there's a rumor that the elephants were buried in their grave, in the mass grave that was set aside for them out at Showman's Rest, not far from Mount Carmel. So this is the rest of the Showman's League of America. We'll move over and take a look at this. So a lot of them, they didn't even know who the people were. They only knew their circus names. For instance, Baldy, June 22nd, 1918. Or Four-Horse Driver next to him. We'll just look down over this. Now, there are also rumors of this place being haunted. They say that you can hear the sounds of elephants here. But it is downwind of the Brookfield Zoo. Old Time over on YouTube. Yes, there is a Victor Frankenstein, M.D., buried at Rose Hill Cemetery. His wife Irma's diaries were published a few years back. And Dr. Victor Frankenstein actually was an anatomist, too. So quite possibly in his youth would have been involved in digging up dead bodies. He lived long enough that I think he overlapped with even the movie. So I don't know why. If anybody ever brought it up to him, his wife certainly never mentions it. And I can never find Dr. Frankenstein when I'm looking for him. I know about where he is, but I can never find him when I'm looking. Look at all these that are just unknown. There's also possibly out in the suburbs is probably the oldest still continuously operating burial ground in Chicago, St. James of the Sag off Archer Avenue. It's a very cool space, really. It's going up the hill. There's a story about the ground kind of breathing in this place. It's probably an optical illusion, but there have been stories about this area being haunted going back to the mid-1800s. The burial ground itself goes back to about the 1830s, and there's not a lot of good data about who all is buried there. There were also stories that after another horrible train wreck in 1873, a lot of the bodies were just laid out here until they could be identified. But by the turn of the 20th century, there were already these stories that this was a free burial ground, that anybody who wanted to could bury a body here at any price. This became a popular thing. If somebody died in the local bar, they would just take them over here and bury them. Now, this was generally agreed by the church and the archdiocese that no, that is not the actual policy, but it was so well understood that everybody just kind of had to go along with it. But right after this article was published, in 1897, there was a story about musicians seeing a ghost in the place. They were staying in a place that overlooked it. You can see the same steeple in the background as you see right there. It looks a little more narrow in the drawing, but that's just kind of how it goes. But they said that they woke up and saw this sight. They saw a ghostly carriage with glowing lights on the horse's forehead rolling up ahead near Archer Avenue, and then a strange woman in a white dress standing up there to stop them. They were ready to swear on this on anything. And there had just been an article about this published in this place, and this one doesn't look like there is a steeple yet. Also around the same time, there was a story in 1897 that some skeletons had been found, one of which was a man over 7 feet high, because every time there was an article like this, when they find a bunch of skeletons, there was always one that was supposed to be a giant. It's almost a running joke among archaeologists and anthropologists. Let's climb up the hill here a little bit. This is the Jim McMahon grave. Not that Jim McMahon. J.M. McMahon. Now, Mary McMahon, his wife, was married several times. This is an older grave. Goes back to the about the second half of the 19th century. Then in front of it, we've got Mary Frances Halligan, who was married to a few different people. That 1897 article implied that quite a few of her husbands had died under mysterious circumstances. One of them certainly had. Some burglars apparently came in to burgle the place and just shot him to death while they were at it, but there were those who were starting to suggest that Mary might have been something to do with it. Really, I think that given that there's not really any evidence of that, that's kind of a crappy thing to say about her. But while we're on Archer Avenue, of course, we have got to check out Resurrection Cemetery, the most famous ghostly spot in Chicago. It's a Catholic cemetery down in the suburbs on Archer Avenue. Now, there is a story about the vanishing hitchhiker, Resurrection Mary. People pick her up on the south side. She rides along in their car for a while. Then when they get up to those gates, she'll start saying, "Pull over, you have to pull over now." And they'll go inside to find that the girl has disappeared. There are stories like this all over. The most common solution to who it would be the ghost of is a girl named Mary Bregovy, who has an unmarked grave over here on the cemetery. But really, it's just we say that it might have been her because she died in a car wreck. And usually when people tell the story of Resurrection Mary, they're really just telling the vanishing hitchhiker story. Folklorists identified all of the tropes of this in the 1940s or so. But there's some evidence that Mary Bregovy had died a few years after the story started going around here at Resurrection Cemetery. Also, when you break it down to the first-hand sightings, there's no real reason to think it was a girl who died in a car wreck or even that it was a girl named Mary. Assuming that the ghost is real, it could be any of the people who were buried here. There were dozens of Marys who about the right age and who died about the right time. There are even those who say that there's another vanishing hitchhiker, or possibly that everybody's just getting confused over at St. Casimir, which is the burial place of a woman named Anna Norcus, who died a little after her 13th birthday, after a night of dancing. She also died in a car wreck and is sometimes said to be the real Resurrection Mary. Though I don't think I've ever seen a first-hand account of Resurrection Mary that said she looked anywhere near 13. She's always said to be in her early 20s. Either just before or just after her 13th birthday. Often when they retell the story, it was on her 13th birthday. But since we're out in the south suburbs, I always kind of hesitate to even talk about Bachelor's Grove. Something there is about Bachelor's Grove that makes grown adults act like 8-year-olds who just saw Ghost Adventures for the first time. This is a little more or less abandoned cemetery down in the suburb of Midlothian. Going back to at least the 1950s, it has been a popular place for teenagers to get wasted. You have an abandoned cemetery, you have teenagers getting wasted. Try not to have ghost stories. Kind of make the walk all through here. I'll speed it up a little. It is kind of spooky walking in here by yourself sometimes. The woods spook me a little bit more than the cemetery itself does, but the woods are just trees. The trees are just wood. I have no fear, nor no one should. We'll skip ahead. You can see this has been cleaned up in recent years. There are a couple of groups that have done big cleanups here at Bachelor's Grove. They kind of become fierce rivals. I think they have the occasional rumble. I often tell people you don't even need to see ghosts at Bachelor's Grove. The people that you meet here are strange enough. I stick to that. You get people doing weird rituals and talking about which of the people buried here are evil, like they're not just regular people. You can see that one grave right over there. We'll walk over towards that one here. You can see there's about 200 bodies buried here, I believe. Probably there used to be more monuments. Well, this is perhaps the most famous one. This is the picture where Judy Huff Fells took this picture in the early 1990s. And I've interviewed Judy. She would swear to me that there was nobody sitting on that grave over on the left-hand side. Now, usually you just see like the crop of this photograph, but if you look up ghost pictures, this is one of the first that comes up. Judy took this with an infrared camera that she had never used before and never used again. It was very difficult to find anybody who would actually develop the film for her. We'll move along over here. We'll just get a better shot of this. Every local ghost hunter has to take a seat on this gravestone at some point or another. There are even stories from the 1960s about teenagers digging the graves up here. I've talked to some people from Midlothian and said, yeah, there was always a rumor that somebody out here was buried with like $100,000 in cash. And the hell of it is they kept digging up the same guy, according to this person. I've actually met a couple of people who were involved in this sort of thing, and usually most of them are like, no, I don't want to talk about it. I had to go into the army, one guy said. Among the other famous ones here is the one called Infant Daughter. We'll move over to this. Lots and lots of ghost stories here, some of which get very weird. There's something about like a two-headed monster roaming in the woods. There's the vanishing house that I get emails about occasionally. People swear that they have seen a house out in the woods that doesn't exist. Maybe it once did, but certainly not at the time that they're seeing it. And the cops will chase you out of this place. But you can get a permit, too. There were some weird legends about if you dropping a coin on the infant daughter grave, it would never land in a certain place. It would move all on its own. A shot of that from the distance. This is Ken, one of my old ghost tour partners, when we took a group out here years back. This is actually the Fulton plot. The Fulton family has a lot of the graves over in the cemetery. In fact, up on the right is Luella Fulton in this shot. Guy in the middle looks like his name might have been Mark Wayne. Lulu or Luella is often said to be the person who is haunting the place and sitting on that grave. That wasn't one of her family plots, but she was killed in a car wreck out in Tinley Park back in the 1950s. Let's move on from there. It's the kind of family I picture when I picture a kind of people who would name a kid Mark Wayne. I'm Mark Wayne. This is my wife, Tanqueray. This one, the Lehman family. It's just the lion that makes this one spooky to me. It's like having a staring contest with you. The Lehman Mausoleum is at Forest Home Cemetery out in Forest Park, and last I saw it was actually available for sale. The Lehman family never used it, so it was on sale. Let's get another shot moving in on this. This was on sale for like $200,000, which is a bargain. I think part of the fun of getting a mausoleum is designing it yourself, so you miss out on that, but I've seen much, much smaller ones than this go for a lot more than that. I would estimate that this thing is probably at least a $2 million mausoleum and probably more than that. Well, you can see there's no names on it because even after going to the trouble of not only building it, but this was the Lehman family who owned a store called The Fair. That was a discount shop. It was kind of the Kmart of its generation. Down to the back, the bodies were all supposed to be down here, and this was even wired to be rigged up with electric lights. Then you can go right on down and tomb snoop in it. So in addition to the $200,000, you probably will have a pretty big outlay in restoring it. This is what it looks like on the inside, all just kind of scaffolding falling apart. But they ended up having a more modern one built at Graceland Cemetery. This is the current Lehman Mausoleum. Very elegant on the inside. Oh yeah, $200,000 is still more than I'm personally going to be paying anytime soon. You can get an excellent condo in Chicago for that kind of money. Less than that. Well, less than that kind of money. But while we're here at Graceland, let's check out a few of the Graceland ones. Perhaps most notably, one of the ones with the strangest ghost stories around it, Ludwig Wolf. It kind of looks like a toilet. Mr. Ludwig Wolf was a big toilet manufacturer. This is one of his water closets. There are a couple of stories about this. One is that it is said to be guarded by some kind of green-eyed howling monster, which is almost certainly just a play on his name. There's also some stories about knocking on the door, and this is one of the mausoleums that Graceland never actually opens. That's known to have some structural damage. These ones that go into the hill are structurally just a very bad idea. But Ludwig is in there, as well as a few others, including his daughter Harriet Wolf, who was killed in the Iroquois Theater fire. Now, there is supposed to be a ghost at the Nederlander Theater where the Iroquois was that manifests by flushing a toilet and giggling about it backstage. My best guess was always that it must have been Harriet, who was very familiar with toilets. But there are stories, and I myself went down here to get some footage and heard something inside of there and kind of jumped back. Look, you can even see me jumping back. Now, keep it in mind, Montrose Avenue is just on the other side of this, so there's plenty of reasonable explanations besides ghosts why there might be a noise in there. But you can see me backing away. I've seen Bob try to go down there again. Please don't do that. Here's some footage just from this morning. It was a nice foggy day. This is the Sanford Monument, which is guarded by what appears to be 4 headless statues. Sanford was a candy maker. He owned a factory that was one of the largest west of New York. But is guarded by these 4 of them. Now, I don't really know how they lost their heads. It could have been vandals in the 70s. It could have been just wear and tear. But really, for all 4 of them to break like that, when given, like, compared to, like, the DeSalvo. This is the one in the back left, the one in the back right. But there is one that just kind of looks like it's missing its head from a distance. It is actually not a headless statue, it's just a bent neck lady. Another interesting one over here. There's one with the sundials. There's a couple of sundial graves at Graceland, none of which actually quite work. It's got these things representing the 4 seasons, including the spooky one for autumn, with a skull and a raven. This was a family of lawyers. And over on the other side, we've got, I guess this one is summer? But it's one of the things kind of like the mosaic at Rose Hill Cemetery that always looked to me kind of like something off of the back of Led Zeppelin 4. This is in the vault in the mausoleum. This is the Shed Crypt. Mr. Shed of the aquarium fame has that stained glass window. Said to be a Tiffany. Nobody seems to know if it really is or not. And sometimes I knock on the door on these things and just kind of wait for somebody to answer. And I just know one of these days it's going to swing open and there's going to be the guy in his bathrobe and a tidy whities hanging out eating some toast and be like, what? Here we have Eternal Silence, statue by Laredo Taft at Graceland Cemetery, built using money from the funds of Henry Graves, who came along with his father. It's always said to be the grave of Dexter Graves. It's really his father, really his son, Henry. This is a probate file, Henry Graves. They didn't have the right paperwork for deceased that day, so they had to cross out insane and write in deceased. But in his will, he put aside something like $250,000 for the erection of a family mausoleum. They didn't give him a mausoleum. They gave him a statue that would not have cost more than $50,000 based on whatever price shopping I could do at the time. But it attracted a lot of notice right away. This is supposed to be a statue of Father Time. It is sometimes said to be the statue of death. But our image of the Grim Reaper is based on old images of Father Time as well, so, same thing. But there's actually a poem that goes with it that is not widely remembered today. And here you can see from the picture that no, this was always facing that direction. There's a story that it was facing the opposite way, but the riders on the L trains passing by complained. But The Eternal Silence by Horace Spencer Fix. This one's for Todd. Unmoved by thought of things beyond the grave, and silent neath the mysteries of night that seem to quench the last of human sight, he stands alone, unterrified and brave, not like a shaking coward or a slave, whom all the whips of horror ceaseless smite, but like a hero who has fought his fight, and dauntless waits with some certain power to save, for in his soul hath sprung a strength unknown, from battling with the thews that throw mankind, compelling homage though he stood alone, and girt with fog-like fears that almost blind these mortal eyes, he feels immortal grown, the silent reaches of the eternal mind. Henry Spencer Fisk, a poet associated with the Hull House. I have a suspicion that Louisa Coven Bowen is the one who commissioned this statue. Her name is all over the... She was related to Graves by marriage. Her name is all over the probate. But of course, back behind the Newberry Mausoleum, the Newberry Monument, where Mr. Newberry is long rumored to be buried in a barrel of rum. That's a whole other story. Tied for most famous in Graceland Cemetery, Inez. Now, we don't really know if Inez Briggs really looked like this. She probably would have been known as Inez Clark later. Her mother married Mr. Clark right before her death. But had never gotten around to changing it. It's a nice twilight shot of her. Now, Inez, there's a lot of stories about Inez haunting the place. They say that she died when her mother locked her outside during a lightning storm, and now the statue disappears and her ghost roams the cemetery at night. But we've got enough paperwork. We know that she actually died of diphtheria. We should really let her poor mother off the hook for that story. And here she is with one of the coyotes going by. Now and then I get a good shot of a coyote here. There are stories about it disappearing, and it's a pretty well-sealed glass case here. We don't know when exactly they added that. It must have been fairly early, given how good a shape the statue is in. I do think when it gets kind of fogged up like this, I do think that her chair kind of looks like a skull, in a way. I can see it. Not sure I'm even supposed to post this, but there was a much earlier shot from beforehand that shows, this is me attempting to clean up the epitaph. There was kind of a cradle-style grave. I could never find a program that'll clean up the shot enough that I can actually read what it used to say. And this is not the kind of thing you can really use AI for, as it might come up with something that looks about right, but it won't be real. People like to leave her things, too. Let's move on to Rose Hill just briefly. I can never resist this one. I just got an email. Somebody asked me what the deal with this thing is. James Minikakis died 666. With the legend on the top, from darkness he came, in darkness he lived. To darkness he returned, and from darkness he will be reborn to a better time. I saw this and thought, originally it was painted white. The first time somebody sent me a picture of this, I thought it was fake. Then when I found it myself, I had to think, this guy must be the most metal guy who ever lived. Now, in fact, I understand that the guy, well, for one thing, James is still alive. He did not, in fact, die on 6606, but there's no law saying that you have to have the right date of death on your own personal mausoleum. Last I heard, he was still alive and not even that big of a heavy metal fan, but a big vampire enthusiast. But he had been doing some work at Rose Hill Cemetery, realized he had no real family of his own, so had this built for himself. Let's take a brief look here at, going a little over time tonight, but that's all right. It's all a tribute. Laura, it's only if I do a walking tour from the opposite side sometime. Because it's about a mile from where we start the Rose Hill tours. This is Francis Pierce Stone. Now, there's a story that the original of this is the second version. The first one sunk in the Atlantic. There's a later story that it went down to the Lusitania, but the timeline doesn't work at all there. Probably confusing H.O. Stone, her husband, with H.M. Stone, who did die in the Lusitania. This is H.O. Stone, her husband. Another one that just happens to be creepy. Not a lot is known about the family related here. This is a Bohemian National Cemetery. I should really get better footage of this. I should have gone out there today, in fact, when it was nice and foggy. Maybe it'll be foggy again. This is the Pilgrim statue at Bohemian National. If it's scary, just imagine this particular pilgrim is the wife of Bath from the Canterbury Tales. out here to tell you sex stories. There's a quick look at the face. And of course, you know, on the Patreon, we have pictures of coyotes in the cemetery. Every week, every Wednesday, there's a new one. Here's one looking at Memory, the statue that graces the Marshall Field plot. A coyote on a snowy day. I love that one. One of a whole family just standing guard. This is the one that ended up in the book. This is possibly my favorite of all of the ones that I ever got. That same foggy day as the last one, I think. It's the one we used at the intro to this. They used to love standing on these ones. Every new batch of coyotes has their own favorite places. So you found Waldo here. A similar one to that. I love the colors in this. Everything's kind of blue. There he is, racing alongside the L train. Right near the Sullivan Monument. I've always especially liked this one, like they're running off to go see Dracula. Fog until 10 tomorrow? Perfect. Oh, but we got to do Find a Grave tomorrow, and I have a whole list of people I need to find to find a grave. So we'll be doing that. Well, all right, everybody. Thanks a lot for joining me. I am Adam for Mysterious Chicago Tours. We're doing this a tribute to Todd Pearsall tonight. Rest in all the action you want, Todd. And with that, we will put the Benny Goodman back on and just hang out like we always do. No. There's the button. I know there's a button here. There we are. Alex, thank you for that. It's good to hear. See, the Empress is still back over on the couch. I tore up the inside of my mouth eating cereal earlier today, so I'm kind of taking it easy on the bourbon. And you know who I have to blame besides myself for that? Nobody. Let's see if I can see that. Thank you, Cyrus, for joining the Patreon at the ticket tier. There are some slots on the ticket tier right now. That is your best bet. I'm joining that. A whole bunch of deer and a weird blob of light. That's cool, Todd. Hey, Gary.
And that would put rhythm in the feet of a wooden Indian. That was the bugle call rang.
I sat on a panel at Ghost Hunters one time where a guy played a recording from Resurrection that he said was the ghost of Richard Crowe. And I'm like, I hope nobody has a picture of me on this panel. But at least the bourbon should help, but it should also hurt. So it'd be better if I switched to something cheaper. And this cool, this Cedar Ridge stuff, which is very corn forward. I'm digging it. Iowa corn wheat bourbon. Oh, thank you, Carol. We need to get more coyotes back in Graceland, really. They've got a bit of a goose poop problem this year. Octavio, it was Mott's. Some weird kind of cereal that I was not really familiar with, but it's like fruit flavors. Yeah, Gary. That's Vinny's job. Figured I'd have something to celebrate the firing of Christy Nome. I'll drink to that. I did Ladies Who Lunch at Karaoke a while back.
On Harlem Way, they're all trucking. And here's Helen Ward to tell you all about it.
It's good because you can make everybody rise at the end. Rise! Oh yeah, Lewandowski's out too. I do, I know that this Mark Wayne Mullins guy is going to be even worse, but I do enjoy it when bad things happen to bad people. So. Fired isn't the outcome I wanted for her. What I wanted was a little more brutal. But there's still time. Still time and plenty of seeds out there for sour apple trees. Jennifer, we're glad we got you here anyway. We're just kind of hanging out. Opposed to our hangout. Bringing to the memory of Todd Pearsall tonight. I switched to a cheaper bourbon. I can taste it as a cheaper bourbon. Yeah, move to like some kind of weird new program that I'll be amazed if anything ever actually comes of it. And she's going to be, what, the special envoy? I always wanted to be a special envoy. Can I be the special envoy to something? That sounds like a job that pays really well, and you don't have to do very much. Unless it's like the envoy in a Warren Zevon song. In the envoy. Then you're going to get killed for sure. I saw Mark Wayne Mullins saying that when he drives, he doesn't wear a seatbelt in case he gets carjacked. What a wuss. You all see me driving around in Chicago pretty regularly. Does it mean I'm more of a rough man than he is? John, I'm pretty sure there are other members of Congress who went to college. Special envoy to Graceland, yes. Here we are. Jan, no, I haven't heard any new updates on the Dreyhouse Mausoleum at Graceland. Yeah, well, Congress is the Senate. The Senate is part of Congress. Noam going out by misquoting George Orwell seems pretty on brand. Honestly, giving up your your position as a senator for that kind of a cabinet level post that has such a short shelf life is really an absurdly dumb move. And no seatbelt so he can run away in case he gets carjacked.
Hotel in Chicago and dance some more to Benny Goodman and his orchestra, and hear Helen Ward sing Eeny, Meeny, Miny, Mo.
Somebody's messaging me that are a pub quiz and have had questions about murderers in the 1800s in Chicago. Yep, it was H.H. Holmes. Black Sox? Ah. I don't know if I'm helping this guy cheat a bar trivia right now. Group of suspects, in quotes. My friend Nathan is one of my Dylan traveling buddies. And Debbie, people have never tried to carjack me either, so... There are a lot of people who think that there are cartoon burglars behind every bush as soon as you get into a city. Muggers in every alley. Oh yeah, I get a lot of calls from scammers for sure. Laura, hell yeah. Not a sense of drink. But it's a joke I often have, you know. People from very small towns tell me all the things they do to keep from getting mugged when they're in the city. I'm like, okay, how about you tell me all the things you do to keep from getting keep from impregnating your cousin in your town? It's the same thing. As, you know, me assuming that you impregnate your cousin is the same as you assuming that I get mugged all the time. Just stereotypes, man. It can't be someone who wants to run. That's interesting. had a guy who used to come into my Facebook feed and comment with that quote about you could only sleep peacefully because rough men are waiting to attack those who would do you violence. Whatever crap. I knew this guy. He was not a rough man. I might have thought he was a rough man. He was not a rough man. Well, all right, everybody. Thank you very much for joining me tonight. Glad to have everybody out there. We'll be back tomorrow morning with Find a Grave Friday. I haven't decided exactly who I'm going to find yet, but I have a couple of ideas. So thanks, everybody. I'm Adam from Mysterious Chicago Tours. Telling you all to stay safe, stay strong, rest in all the action you want, Todd. I know you can still say spooky, too. Have a great day, everybody.
At the beginning of his program, Let's Dance.